fishing, and what happens?
Well, George, I was sitting on the front of my boat watching my lines. The entire front end of the boat lit up. It's like someone shined a spotlight on it. And I couldn't figure it out because it wasn't coming from anywhere. So I got up out from where I was sitting and went to the front, and I looked up, and there was this thing, bright turquoise, blue, green, and almost like it's hard to explain, but my first initial thought was, my God, it's a plane crash.
Hold on there, Bob. That song from Sheryl Crow tells us we need to take a break. I'm sorry the timing is not great, but we'll come right back and hear the rest of your story. Stay with us for more Coast to Coast AM. Something strange fell from the sky south of Needles, California back on May 14th. The two most important eyewitnesses to that event are with us, are telling us what they saw. The man known as Bob on the River has resurfaced and is telling his story on the radio for the very first time, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back, and we'll try to save a few minutes for you to ask some questions of Bob and Frank Costigan as well here on Coast to Coast AM. Welcome back to Coast. Our guests, Frank Costigan and Bob on the River. Bob, I know people won't believe I did that on purpose to cut you off at that point, but that's just the way it ended up. Continue with your story. You see this bright light bouncing off the water, right?
Well, it had reflected all around to the front of the boat, and I thought someone was shining a light on me, but I didn't hear anything. I got up, like I said, and I went to the front of the boat, and I looked up, and that's when I saw it. And it only took a couple of seconds, maybe 3 or 4 seconds at the most, because by the time I could focus on it, it had already come over my head and proceeded to land about 100, 150 yards due west of my position. And I expected, like Mr. Costigan, I expected to hear a large crash. But all I heard was a thump. Kind of like if you put a big boulder down into the soft sand, thump, that kind of noise. And,
well, that whole area is sandy, isn't it?
It's sand and soft brush, but you got to understand, at 3 o'clock in the morning out here, it's extremely dark. You can't see much of anything except for the outlying lights way around towards where the cities are. But anyway, I honestly believed in my heart at that time it was a plane crash. I thought that's what I'd seen. I went back inside the cabin of the boat to find my cell phone. By the time I got my cell phone and turned it on, I tried to get a signal. I was unable to get a signal, even though there were bars present, but I tried dialing 911. It wouldn't go out. So I tried to get up on the top deck, went around the back. By the time I got up on the top deck, I barely got up there and was looking still over towards the area where I thought it had impacted, and that's when the first of the little helicopters showed up. And first one, then two, then three, then four altogether. Made a slow circle in a counterclockwise motion around, kind of below my boat, and then a little bit up farther to the north, and then over towards where the crash site was. And I was amazed at this, still trying to get a phone signal out, when the big sky crane showed up. And you can't miss those. That thing was huge. And it came in the same direction, following the other four, and disappeared over the edge and behind the brush line.
The little ones are shining lights on you?
No. They came around and circled around and then disappeared, like I said, over towards the area where the impact point was. Now, I'm down on the river, and the banks go up a little bit of a ways, so I was down out of their line of sight. But I was standing on top of the boat when I saw they weren't down. They couldn't have been down more than 10 minutes, because it took me a few minutes to get back down to the lower section of the boat. I figured it had to be a plane crash because they were already on it. Got back inside my boat, went back up to the front, was checking my lines and looking back over towards the area. And at that time, it couldn't have been more than 10 minutes at the very most. That's when the big hook appeared. The big helicopter came right back up. This thing was underneath it, and they disappeared to the northwest and out of my line of sight. So
you're not thinking it's a plane crash anymore, obviously.
I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a plane crash at the first. That's the initial feeling I had what it was. I didn't know what the heck it was.
The thing that was hauled away, how big was it?
It appeared to be a large cylindrical-shaped tank. It looked like a tank, meaning like a fluid tank, not an army tank. I'm talking about a tank, like the size of a tanker truck.
And was it glowing or putting out any color?
It appeared to be reflecting somewhat because of the lights that the little helicopters were shining on it, but they weren't dolting on it. They were basically kind of, circling it, but not circling. It's hard to explain.
Well, they were shining lights that would occasionally reflect off of this thing?
Yes, that's how I got what it looked like.
So,
and they were gone instantly. I mean, I only had just this very few minutes. This thing was out of sight. It impacted. They picked it up and flew off with it.
And flew away in kind of a formation?
The one small helicopter made one circle back around, shined his light down on my boat, sat there for maybe 5-10 seconds, and then followed the rest of them, and off they went.
Bob, you were, we'll get into this whole Men in Black thing in a minute, but for a while there, I was trying to call you. Frank Costigan was trying to find you. We went down to the Topak Marina to find you. Nobody could find you. Were you, there was a lot of theories that maybe somebody had come and snatched you. Nobody came and snatched you, right?
No, not at all. I just didn't want to be found.
And, I don't want to go into your personal life too much, but, I mean, it's the kind of thing where you just didn't want attention.
Well, no, not so much that as I didn't know what this thing was. I have no idea. I still don't.
When I've asked you about this before and the couple of times that we've met, you've been sort of cagey with me in terms of, you don't think it was something we were meant to see, and that maybe you had heard something from somebody that it really was exotic. Can you elaborate?
George, the only thing I can tell is I had two visitors, and they weren't men in black. They were two people that showed up on my boat. Now, you've been aboard my boat. You know where it was parked.
Yep.
And you know how you have to walk down onto the dock to get to it. Well, when you're on my boat, you can feel anybody. You can feel a 5-year-old that walks along that dock. Anything. I mean, it's like a 6.5 factor earthquake, and if somebody walks on the dock to come down to see the boat. And I had two people show up that were extremely unusual. Now, I thought they were there interested in buying the boat. But when I asked them to come in, and they wanted to come in and see the boat, they didn't want to look at the boat. They just sat there and looked at me. But it was a very unusual way these people appeared. And I don't want to take up your valuable time, but they were just extremely unusual. And they had heard the story, and they pretty much made it known to me that everything was okay. And that's just about what they said.
Everything was okay.
Everything was okay. It's nothing bad.
Did they tell you to be quiet or keep your mouth shut, or you?
Not in so many words.
That's just an impression you got?
I definitely got that impression.
So that's why you were sort of having a low profile there for a while.
It kind of got my attention.
Yeah. They didn't identify themselves in any way? Did they look like military or government or? No,
absolutely the opposite. They looked like models out of Hollywood. It was a man and a woman, blonde hair, bright blue eyes, just extremely attractive people. Very, very nice, very pleasant.
Wait a second. Are you hinting that maybe these people are from somewhere else?
I don't know. I have no idea. But they didn't act like someone that was looking at a boat to buy it.
Frank Costigan, these other strange people show up pretty quickly, and they're hanging around the radio station, checking out the radio station, according to you and Dave Hayes and some of the other folks there. You've seen the stories that we aired. Do you think that this is not the OST, that the guys who are looking at the station are not the same ones that we encountered out on the road?
I don't believe so. The appearance of the people are very similar, but the vehicles are totally different. They got government plates and they're dark and they're weird looking with the windows darkened out. But, I had a discussion with Dave Hayes while we were on the air. We ran your show, as we watched it. And we had a big discussion on the air that these were not the vehicles. His were, the one he saw, the main one, was very high, off-road type of vehicle. And, we studied what you'd sent or put out on the air, and he says nothing matched what they had seen.
Well, these the OST vehicles that we saw, they have a whole array of them. So I'm gonna have to probably go over that with you guys to see if any of them meet the description. Bob and Frank, both of you, tell me this: how have your lives changed since this thing happened? I mean, is it still a big story down there? You still get people asking you about it?